Casey treats people and portable restrooms the same way.
They taught me, if you treat people right, they will treat you right in return. And if you work hard for them, you'll be rewarded.
Which may kind of sound crazy, but it's helped her launch a brand new portable restroom business on the path to long-term success. Listen in. Casey, thank you for joining us. I cannot wait to talk to you for a lot of reasons, because my favorite part about your story is your background, because I read that you were selling Vactor parts when you were in high school.
I was, yeah.
Who were you working for? A distributor out there?
Yeah, so the company was called Arizona Wastewater Industries, and my dad was a UPS driver here in town. He did it for 30-something years. So when I started wanting to get like an after-school job and stuff, he's like, oh, I have this customer that you could go work for, this customer. So when I was like 14, I went like over the summers and sorted like airplane connectors. I did that like 2 summers in a row. Well, then I could drive. And he's like, I have this lady. She's looking for a personal assistant. Her and her husband own Arizona Wastewater Industries. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It was just like an assistant job, And it ended up just being such a blessing because these people are like my family now. Like, I've been with this woman since I was 16 years old. I talk to her probably every week. And I worked maybe 10 years, like solid 5 years while I was in college, while I was finishing up high school. And they did it all. They sold, Vactor stuff, manhole covers, the manhole picks, just all the stuff along the lines of like big commercial type.
Municipal type.
Yes, municipal.
Supply.
So we had like City of Prescott. We had, different municipalities around here. And then the company actually became like Prescott's pretty small. So eventually they did move down to Phoenix, and their son and another guy that I worked with have taken it over since they've retired. But it was just a bigger opportunity for them down in Phoenix. And I just did small stuff like made catalogs. Like I would go through and just make binders of catalogs. I would take orders over the phone, but I got to go to like the shows, like the trade shows, which were so fun.
What year, like roughly? I hate to do this.
No,
but
that's okay. I started working there the week I turned 17. So that was junior year. So 2002, I think, or 2003. No,
So
2003.
did they take you to like they drag you to like the regional shows, or did they bring you to like the pumper cleaner show, or?
I think it was a regional show. So the first one I ever went to was in Laughlin. It was the Tri-State show.
Okay.
So we did, and then they moved it, like it was in Laughlin for quite a few years. And then they moved it to Prim. And I never went to the one that was in Prim.
So you're working for this company and you're still, like you said, they're basically mentors to you at this point. If you're still talking to them like family, you're saying, and you learn these parts, you're doing catalogs, you're shipping parts, things like that, but you're getting acclimated to like,
deposits, anything like that is what I did.
So you're learning a lot of business stuff too at that point.
Yeah.
And you worked there pretty much, if you said you went to college and you continued to work there, where did you go to school?
I actually went to school in Prescott, Arizona. It was called Yavapai College. And I went for nursing and ended up not finishing and met my husband in chemistry class. And
that's some chemistry.
I know. But I decided, I didn't really want to like do another 2 years for nursing. And then dental had always sort of appealed to me. So I did get an associate's degree at Yavapai. And then I did a dental assisting certification. That was like 3 more months. And did that whole thing. And then my dentist, like the one that I'd had since I was a child, needed an assistant. So I went and worked there for 7 years, and they only worked 4 days a week. So on the Fridays, I would go work for Arizona Wastewater.
So you still are at Arizona Wastewater even while you're a dental hygienist?
No, I was just an assistant, but yes, because you don't make much as a dental assistant. And I mean, like I said, I love Rose and Gary. That's the owners. And she was always like, well, I need help on Fridays if you want to come on your days off. And I'm like, heck yeah. And then got married, started having kids. I would bring my baby to Arizona Wastewater and she would just bounce in the seat and I would work.
So Rose and Gary are the owners at Arizona Wastewater, and how come, like, why did you not just always stay there? It sounds like this was such a great relationship.
Because they moved to Phoenix, and Phoenix is 2 hours away.
And you just didn't want to make the transition.
Phoenix, I mean, it's great to visit, but 120 degrees in the summer is just not for me.
Were you kind of sad when they picked up and moved in a way?
Yes, I was sad. It sucked, like and it was more than just a job. It was somebody to talk to when I was going through like those awful teenage years. I have amazing parents. I do. But Rosie was like, she was like the second mom that had like, she wasn't like so uber protective that she couldn't like give me the correct advice.
Well, here you're a mother of 6, is that right?
I am, yes.
There's something to be said for being able to put your trust in someone who's removed from having to wear the mom hat.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I did like the most off the wall stuff with her. Like we would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 3 days a week and go to a exercise class together. She was part of like the Prescott Fine Arts, and they did like fashion shows. She put me in the fashion show. Like it was so much more than a job.
Well, to me, what you learn at things like that are you learn the value of people.
Mm-hmm.
And on both sides, because you said you were answering the phones, and you also learned, I would imagine that if Rose and Gary treated you that way, is it safe to say they probably treated everybody who worked there in a very nice way? Maybe not the same way, but in a very good way.
Very, very small. So when it was literally Rose, Gary, me, Aaron, which is one of the guys who took it over now, and their son, Scott. So there wasn't like tons and tons of employees coming in and out. She did have another personal assistant for a while, a gal that was like her friend's daughter. But it was just very small. It was just like a family. And like when I moved out of my parents' house, I moved in with Scott and Aaron, her son, and then the other guy. And they like protected me because I was already engaged to my husband.
You were their baby sister?
Yeah, I was. I always was. And I felt super safe living with them, getting out on my own before I got married and such. And like, I saw them all the time. Like,
but that foundation was taught to you by them. Maybe I guess I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that foundation there? Like, do you carry that forward to how you do business today? What you learned there?
I do, because they taught me, if you treat people right, they will treat you right in return. And if you work hard for them, you'll be rewarded, basically.
Let's talk about how you get into what you're doing now, because you were working at Arizona Wastewater. You were, I keep saying dental hygienist, but it's a dental assistant.
Yeah, it's a dental assistant.
Different. Just means less money, more responsibility.
Probably, yeah, But I worked I worked at the dental office from 2007 till 2014. And I decided to call it quits when I got pregnant with my third kid. So I still worked full time when I had my first two. And then once the third one was coming, I was like, all right, my husband's the same way. He's like, I think you need to just stay home. It's not worth it to try to pay for daycare.
What does your husband do?
He is a diesel mechanic by trade. He went through like all the different certifications and worked at like a Ford Motor Company place in Parker, where he was from. And then when he moved up here after we got married, he worked at a few different shops. He worked at a transmission shop and like a brake and alignment shop. But every place he worked for, they put him through school. So it's like he did the school thing when I was at Yavapai and ended up not wanting to do, he was going to do agribusiness and kind of decided against it. So he did like all the Ford certifications, bumper to bumper. He did all the ASC certifications and diesel, all that kind of stuff. And after working in like 2 different shops for like 6 years, he kept applying for this copper mine that's here. And big deal out here is this mine. And finally got on when my third baby was 10 months old. So he's been there 10 years now. And he was lead diesel tech for a number of years. And then he kind of like made up his own position. Like, I don't really know how to explain it. He runs what's called the motor pool. And he is a mechanic by trade, but the trucks will come in, he'll diagnose them.
Still at the mine, or is this his business?
He's still at the mine.
Okay.
And
well,
then
this has to come in handy though too, because I'm sure you're running some trucks. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, without my husband being the diesel mechanic he is, this business wouldn't work for me. So we built a 1,200 square foot shop in the backyard. It has a lift on one side, a pull-in in the other, and it's completely outfitted with all his tools because he doesn't need those tools inside the mine.
Well, and also if your husband right now loves this business because these are the types of things that are legitimate write-offs for him, the shop, the tools.
Yeah.
So I right now I would be embracing that. So, I mean, let's get back to the root of the story here. So you're on baby number 3 at this point. You realize the dentistry thing is like not the right career path. Your husband's kind of already got a good job. So that's a positive. So you can take maybe a little bit of risk.
Yes.
How do you steer this direction?
So, I stayed home for 10 years and raised my babies and just kept having them every other year, new baby. And the thing about his job is like the insurance is amazing. So it was very like, you pay one price, it doesn't matter how many kids you have, and it's full everything, full vision, full medical, full dental, all of it. So it was very, I don't want to say easy for me to stay home, but it was affordable. It was affordable.
But you have a lot of nice things in place that make it, again, not easy, but they just make it, it's a good situation to be in.
Right. And it's like with his mine job, he works like a rotating schedule. So he's home every other 5 days. So for a long time, that shop was used to do side work for friends, buy cars, fix them up, sell them on Craigslist type stuff. So we were always doing something to make sure that we could afford our life. And the porta potty thing, okay, it's random. It's so random. My son played football a few years ago, and there's some porta potties out at the football field. Well, my kid, so many kids, they got to go to the bathroom. We started walking over to the porta potties, and it was just absolutely horrendous. And I was like, I don't want to go in that porta potty. I don't want to put my child in that porta potty. And it just got us like thinking, we're in a small town. There's not very many companies around here. And the ones that are here don't clean their stuff, how we would. And just got to kind of like thinking about it. And then he had a buddy down at the mine that had a porta potty business. And he was more like, well, I guess if you can stand it, it can be a decent business to be in. And so Chris came to me and was just like, what do you think about starting a porta potty company? And immediately I was like, no, there's like, I am not going to go.
You go from like hygienic to still hygiene, honestly, in a way, because you recognize the problem was somebody wasn't servicing these properly, right? So they were not hygienic.
No. And it's like with porta potties, like the first thought that pops into anybody's mind is, ew, gross. Like, I'm not going to the bathroom in a porta potty. And that's where I was like, well, maybe I can do something about this. Maybe I can change people's perspectives when it comes to porta potties. And that kind of got the ball rolling. We have a friend that owns a septic company, and we said, hey, if we bought, 4 or 5 porta potties and set them out, would you pump them for us? And he's like, no. He goes, it's a different thing. Because we had no idea at this point. He goes, septic trucks and porta potty trucks are not the same. And we're like, oh, okay. He goes, but there's a lady.
You're like, yeah, I knew that. You didn't think I knew that? I knew that.
He goes, there's a lady in the Verde Valley, which is maybe like an hour away. She runs a portable restroom company. I think you should give her a call. She's really nice. Maybe she can steer you in the right direction. So I'm like, all right, I'll give this woman a call. Called her. Super nice lady. Like, we hit it off. She's like, well, why don't you guys come out? Like, we'll show you, what we do, like what the equipment's like. And we went out there, and I think we ended up staying out there for like 3 hours, just like looking at everything and learning about the equipment, and got home that night and we're like, okay, I think we're going to try it out. So, we sold our side-by-side. We sold a bunch of tools, and my husband took a loan out of his 401k, and we bought our tank. from
this
slide.
has to be, and you've got 6 kids. So this has to be like, you have to take a deep breath and think,
yes,
this is a gamble, you know?
Yeah. Well, my husband already had the truck because he's had that F-350 for years. Put a
So you just
flatbed
bought a
on it.
little slide-in unit for it?
Yes, we bought a 400 waste, 200 fresh slide-in queen tank. And he already had the flatbed on his truck. You know, it was kind of hard for him to give up his truck for the business, you know, but got the tank in November of 2023. And at this time, like I was going out with that lady, the portable restroom lady. I was going out with her like once a week, once every other week, just, you know, learning how to do it. And I mean, it got to the point, you know, by the end of the day, on the first day, I was doing it all. I mean, she'd be scrubbing, but I was the one running the truck and filling the bucket and, you know, putting in the chemicals and stuff like that. It came actually super easy to me, which I don't know. I'm used to cleaning up messes, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And just kind of went on from there. So we bought 7 toilets and we drove to Fresno. Oh, it was horrible. From here, it was like 9 hours. We took 2 kids with us because we thought we were going to save money by like going and picking them up and then putting them together. Never again. I'll never do it again. Drove to Fresno. They loaded us up. We went and ate, rested for a little while, drove back. So like 18 hours round trip with 2 of the kids, and then got home. And then it was like, we pulled up the satellite video on how to assemble these things. So like, oh, it should only take, 40 minutes per unit. 3.5 hours later, we're screaming at each other. It's horrible.
Well, the first one takes 4 hours. The subsequent ones might take 45 minutes.
Right. It was bad. And I was like, never again. I said, I don't care what it costs. Like, if this is going to happen, we are going to need to get these things sent to us assembled. I can't do this. And we had taken over that lady that had taught me. She had some contracts closer to my proximity than hers.
Can I pause you 1 second?
Sure.
You a while back had said there's not a very big population where we are. I want that defined, because where I live, there's 1,500 people.
Oh well, we're much.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I think Chino, where I live, is like 13,000.
Okay, so you're doing your homework with another portable restroom operator out of a somewhat local city. You buy 7 toilets. Mm-hmm. You buy 7 toilets.
Yes, 7 satellites. And then we took over some of her contracts. So with that,
well, you said she was a little ways away. How did you take over some of her contracts? You were traveling?
So she sold me the units, and basically I just took over for her so she wouldn't have to come once a week, an hour and a half out of the way type thing. So she had 2 developments here in Chino that I took over. So I bought the toilets that were already there, and then I think I bought like 15 or 18 polyjohns from her. And then like the developments now that are going up. So now I have like 4 or 5 in each now, where it was only like 1 or 2 to start. And then she had like a food truck park in Prescott, and they had an ADA, a toilet, and a sink, and I took that over as well.
So you bought all the equipment from her and basically the service?
Yes. Yes. The toilet.
Is this all still being funded out of your 401k, selling the side-by-side and some tools?
So when we paid her off, we actually used our tax return last year. So that was helpful. We get a lot back. We got a lot of dependents, so our tax returns are usually pretty good. So we were able to pay her outright with that.
But I guess my point is you're still just self-financing.
Yes.
There's still not enough cash flow here to be able to go out and do things.
There's not. So we do have like a personal line of credit that we used for like one of the sets of toilets. We did have to put our latest, like we bought 28 the other day, and I had to use a business credit card for that. But tax season's coming up again, and I have a lot of write-offs from last year. So I'm hoping that it's lucrative for us this year.
So you guys are this is only 2 years ago. So I mean, we're talking about a super short span.
Well, not even. Like our first day was January 2nd of 2024. That was our first day.
So you're 13 months in business.
I'm 13 months in business. Yes.
And you just told me you bought another, how many, 20 some toilets?
28. So
28 from Satellite again?
Yeah. So January I had those 7, and then I had like the 15 or 18 from Katie. And then by March, I had ordered I think it was 12 more because I had an event that needed 9. So I ordered 12, put together, delivered to my door. It was awesome. By June of last year, I had another load of 14 come. And then by November, I had a load of 20.
So how many do you have total now? I mean, you're pushing 100.
Yeah. So we bought a couple ADAs in there too. So, whatever 76 plus 28 is, that's how many I have.
You have 106. So
yeah.
That's impressive, honestly. In 1 year's time, are you still just servicing with that same little slide-in unit?
Yes, but we bought October of last year. My husband flew to Washington State, and we bought an Isuzu that is
little
named
cab over.
Yeah, so it holds 8 units. It has a one of those lift gates, and it has a 700-gallon waste and like 400-gallon fresh tank.
Well,
so
he's
working on it now. It hasn't run yet.
You bought it used.
We bought it used, and he's been going through everything, like rebuilding all the pumps on it. He's rebuilding like the pressure washer on it. So hopefully Izzy will be up and running soon.
Chris is your husband?
Yeah, Chris is my husband.
The value of Chris in this business cannot be. So a lot of people in your position I'm going to call it a mistake because in my opinion, it is a mistake. They make the mistake of buying a used truck.
Right.
But the problem they have is they have no means to repair it.
Right.
So in your situation, Chris is an invaluable member of this partnership here.
He is. And I mean, we market it as a woman-owned business because I'm like the face and like the media, but he really is like everything. Yes, I go out there and service. Yes, I deliver these toilets, but he's the one making the equipment work. He's the one staying out in the garage till all hours of the evening to make sure that those trucks are like in tip-top shape. The leaf spring broke this past weekend on the truck. Leaf spring is not something he can fix, and it's not common anymore. He had to take it off, put it in the back of my Excursion. I had to drive it down to Phoenix. Phoenix is 2.5 hours away from us. Wait for it, and then drive it back. And then he had to drive home from the mine, which is an hour and a half, put it on my truck, or put it on the service truck that night, and then drive back to Baghdad in the morning at 4:00 in the morning so I could run routes the last 2 days.
The joys of owning your own business, right? Let's talk about this. So you said you're the only one, or you're the one doing all the service work. How many hours a week?
Not now. Sorry? I have an employee now.
So you have one employee now?
Yes, it's my retired UPS driver father.
Oh man. Okay, so you and
he's your dad awesome too. He does so good.
Good for him, and he's probably bored. He's
bored, and he's loving it. So he'll usually run. We have about 3 solid days of routes. He will run Saturdays and Sundays, and he takes my son. So my son's 12. He loves going out with Grampy. They've got like this really good bond. They always have. My dad had 3 girls, so my son was his first boy.
What's the breakup on your kids? Meaning boys, girls.
I have 2 boys, 4 girls, and right
what's
now
the age gap there?
They're all 2 years. Right now they're even ages. So I got a girl that's 4, a boy that's 6, a girl that's 8, a girl that's 10, a boy that's 12, and a girl that's 14.
That is a job. So let's get beyond the family job. And you and your dad are running a portable restroom route with 100+ toilets. You can basically take care.
I don't got my 28 toilets yet. So physically out in the field, there's only like 73 maybe.
Where are you growing from? Is it word of mouth? I mean, yeah. You were fortunate to be able to pick up that route from the woman you had met. That helped a lot, I'm sure.
Yes.
But are you Buenos Baños is the name of the company?
Baños, yeah.
Buenos Baños. Good. I don't have the right inflection on there, but I knew how to pronounce it.
Yes.
I did have a year of Spanish 40 years ago. But anyway, so how are you growing? Is it word of mouth, or is it the service you're providing? Are they jumping in your toilets and they not saying you?
I had a guy mad at me because I couldn't do an overlapping event. And he was talking to the other girl who had snagged me for that weekend. And she goes, he was so mad. And she's like, I just got to her first. It's crazy. They are diving to get my toilets. Like, I got one of my first contracts was a mobile home service. It's called Verneo's Mobile Home, and they do all the groundwork and set mobiles. Early on, I got his contract. Our kids go to school together. I started with one toilet for him. It sat right next to the other company's toilet that they would not pick up and that they would not clean. Finally, 3 months of my toilet being there, they finally came and got their toilet. Well, now I think he has currently maybe 8 or 10 of my toilets. I ended up getting a contract with 2 different asphalt companies, one out of Phoenix, one out of Prescott. The one here in Prescott has quite a few right now, maybe like 10, I'd say. And then I just recently landed this contract with the VA. It's Gorman Construction. And we have like an old fort here from like the 1800s that they turned in like the Veterans Hospital. Well, the superintendent was put in charge of finding porta potties for this huge project. He was at the taco truck park, saw my toilet there, and was like, okay, here's a toilet company. Called me, totally like hit it off. Like, he's from back east, like where my husband's family's from, because I recognize the accent. And he's like, oh, I'm so glad I found you guys. And we ended up talking for like 15 minutes, not even about like porta potties. He goes, I need 13 toilets, 18 months, sinks come spring. I need 5 toilets right now. I said, okay. Took 5 toilets over to the veterans. They're redoing all of the old houses for homeless vets. And then they're building an entirely new building to house homeless and disabled vets. So we'll be there for a while, and it's going to be amazing.
You're making this, I'm going to say, sound easy, but you are to some degree, because most people don't have it's just things are going well for you, which there's no surprise to me, because number one, I look at your personality. Number two, I just look at, again, you've got all the right pieces. You've got good family, to help. You had great support from Rose and Gary right from the get-go. But what do you attribute your success primarily to? Just good customer service, luck?
Showing up.
Yeah.
And honestly, God, like I put my faith and trust in God. I do. And it's always seemed to benefit me. Like, I don't know. I work hard, and I show up and I answer the phone. And like, so many of my customers are just like, you actually come when you say you're going to, you drop off your toilet when you say you're going to. And it boggles my mind, because I think to myself, like, well, these other companies don't, like, they don't show up. They don't clean their toilets. I had a lady, so crazy story, just a side note, calls me straight yelling at me. Your toilet's been tipped over since July, blah. I'm like, ma'am, can I just time you out here for a second? I said, where are you located? Like, what is your business? And she rattles off the address. I said, ma'am, that is not my toilet. And she goes, well, whose toilet is it? I'm like, well, does it have a sticker on it? Like, go check it out. Like, I don't know whose toilet it is. Well, she went through a middleman company, and she goes, well, they told me to call you. I'm like, okay, great. But that toilet that's tipped over, that's not my toilet. She goes, well, do you think you could come out here and service it? I'm like, no, I'm not going to come out there and service somebody else's toilet. I said, do me a favor, call back the middleman, whoever it was, find out whose toilet it is. If they can tell you what company's running that toilet, and then try to call them directly and say, hey, come grab your toilet. I said, I would be happy to bring you one of my toilets. Then her whole like demeanor changed. She's like, oh my gosh, that would be so amazing. Like that. And I've had her contract ever since. Like, I showed up with my orange toilet, and there it sits, and it's always clean. And
this is the sad truth of every service segment right now. The ones that are extremely successful, like you are already, are the people who just treat people the way they want to be treated.
Right.
And the ones that are not successful are the ones that sometimes they just grow too quickly, which is might be an obstacle that you get to at some point, is once you realize you're not treating people the way you currently are, because sometimes growth can be a difficult obstacle.
And that's one of the things I'm sort of like scared, because I feel like we are growing so fast because of, the social media presence. I make funny videos. I get tons of views on them. I go to like business mixers, like local ones here. I became a part of like the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce. And I went to like the Prescott Chamber of Commerce events. And I just want to get myself out there and, let people know what I do. Like, let them know that porta potties don't have to be disgusting. Like, they can be amazing. And I don't know, I've always had that drive in me to like go the extra mile and, provide something good, like provide something that people want to use.
Visit Casey online and on Facebook at Buenos Baños. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more great interviews like Casey's.